Late at night, long after the Hogsmeade trip has ended, Harry is in the Gryffindor dormitory riffling through his trunk. Then after a minute, he surfaces holding a leather-bound book. It was the photo album Hagrid had given him in first year. Turning through the pages, he stops on a page of James and Lily on their wedding day. Everything seems happy. None of the occupants aware of the tragedy soon to befall them. Harry's gaze then lands on the best man beside his father. It was Sirius Black, but he is almost completely unrecognizable. But then, Harry looks up as the door opens, snapping him out of his thoughts. He quickly puts away the album and pretends to be asleep, not wanting to talk to whoever it was.
Harry, you up?
It was just Ron, but Harry still doesn't respond. As he lays there, dark thoughts course through his mind, imagining how Black betrayed his parents to Voldemort. Harry doesn't get much sleep that night, falling asleep just as the sun starts to rise. Waking around noon, he finds the dormitory empty. He quickly dresses, then heads downstairs to find Ron and Hermione waiting for him in the otherwise empty common room.
Harry, you look terrible.
Where's everyone?
Gone. It's the first day of the holidays, remember? It's almost lunch. We were gonna wake you up in a minute.
Harry plops himself onto an armchair by the already roaring fire, though Ron and Hermione eye him anxiously.
You really don't look well, you know?
I'm fine.
Harry, look. You must be really upset about what we heard yesterday, but you mustn't go doing anything stupid.
Like what?
Like trying to go after Black?
You won't, will you, Harry?
Because Black's not worth dying for.
Harry watches them as they give their obviously rehearsed pleas, but they don't seem to help at all.
Do you know what I see and hear when a Dementor gets near me?
They shake their heads, exchanging very nervous looks.
I can hear my mom screaming and pleading with Voldemort. And if you'd heard your mom screaming like that, about to be killed, you wouldn't forget it in a hurry. And if you found out someone who was supposed to be a friend of hers betrayed her and sent Voldemort after her.
Ron and Hermione looked completely shocked to hear this.
There's nothing you can do. The Dementors will catch Black and he'll go back to Azkaban and serve him right.
You heard what Fudge said. Black isn't affected by Azkaban like the others are. It's not a punishment for him.
So what are you saying? You want to kill Black or something?
Don't be silly. Harry doesn't want to kill anyone. Do you, Harry?
Harry's expression clearly says that he is torn. His hatred for Black wars with his futility at being merely a 13-year-old child. But then a thought suddenly crosses his mind.
Malfoy knows. Remember what he said in Potions? If it was me, I'd hunt him down myself. I want revenge.
You're going to listen to Malfoy? Look, you know what Pettigrew's mother got after Black finished with him? Dad told me. An Order of Merlin, first class, and Pettigrew's finger in a box. That was the biggest bit of him they could find. Black's a madman. He's dangerous.
Malfoy's dad must have told him. He was writing Voldemort's in a circle. Malfoy knew Black was working for him.
Malfoy'd love to see you get blown up like Pettigrew. Get a grip. Malfoy's just hoping you'll get killed before you play Slytherin.
Please, Harry, be sensible. Black did an awful thing, but don't put yourself in danger. You'd be playing straight into his hands. Your parents would...
I'll never know what they had wanted. Because thanks to Black, I've never spoken to them.
Sensing that Harry won't be talked down right now, Ron casts about for another subject.
Look, it's the holidays. It's almost Christmas. Let's go and see Hagrid. We haven't visited him in ages.
No, Harry isn't supposed to leave the castle.
But Harry is already standing up.
Yeah, let's go. I can ask him how come he never mentioned black when he told me all about my parents.
This was not what Ron had in mind, and he tries to think of something else, but Harry is already gone. A little while later, the three of them head down the path to Hagrid's hut, shivering in their thick cloaks. Then reaching the hut, Ron knocks on the door, but there's no response.
He's not out, is he?
Ron puts his ear to the door to listen.
There's a weird noise. Listen, is that Fang?
The others also listen in, and they hear a strange low moaning.
Think we should get someone?
Harry bangs on the door.
Hagrid, are you in there?
There's the sound of footsteps, and the door creaks open, revealing Hagrid. He looks terrible, tears streaming down his red, blotchy face.
You've heard it.
Hagrid flings himself onto Harry, who nearly collapses under the weight, before Ron and Hermione could lift Hagrid off of him and steer him into an armchair, while he's still sobbing uncontrollably.
Hagrid, what is it?
But Harry spots a letter on the nearby table, the words barely readable through the wet tears covering the official-looking page. Harry picks it up and reads aloud.
Dear Mr. Hagrid, further to our inquiry into the attack by a hippogriff on a student to your class, we have accepted the assurances of Professor Dumbledore that you bear no responsibility for the regrettable incident. However, we must register our concern about the hippogriff in question. We have decided to uphold the complaint of Mr. Lucius Malfoy. The matter would therefore be taken to the Committee of the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. The hearing will take place on April 20th, and we ask you to be present yourself and your hippogriff at the committee's office in London on that date. In the meantime, the hippogriff should be kept tethered and isolated. And then there's a list of school governors.
Hearing this, Ron and Hermione's hopeful looks fall flat.
But you said Buckbeak's a good hippogriff. I bet he'll get off.
Yet I don't know the gargoyles at the Committee for Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. They've got it in for interesting creatures.
Harry, Ron, and Hermione hear a strange noise. They look around to see Buckbeak sitting in a corner eating something bloody.
I couldn't leave him tied in the snow on his own at Christmas.
The trio exchange looks, because to them, Buckbeak seems relatively harmless, at least compared to some of Hagrid's other exploits.
You'll have to put up a really strong defense, Hagrid. I'm sure you can prove Buckbeak is safe.
Won't make no difference. They're all in Lucius Malfoy's pocket. Scared of him, are they?
And what about Dumbledore, Hagrid?
Got enough on his plate, what with keeping the Dementors out of the castle, and Sirius Black looking around.
At the mention of Black, Ron and Hermione eye Harry, but he can't bring himself to start berating Hagrid when he looks so miserable.
I'm sure I've read about a case of a hippogriff baiting where the hippogriff got off. I researched it, Hagrid.
You can't give up, Hagrid. Hermione's right. You just need a good defense. You can call us as witness.
But Hagrid wails still more loudly. Harry and Hermione helplessly look to Ron for help.
I'll make some tea. It's what Mum does when someone's upset.
Ron busies himself at the stovetop making some tea for them all. Then after drinking a big gulp and many more reassurances of help, Hagrid is much calmer. Then after a while, they decide to head back to the castle for some lunch. Over the next few days, they start into their research trying to find any precedent for Buckbeak to be let off. But everything they find is either irrelevant or would have the opposite outcome to what they wanted. And during this time, the castle is decorated in its Christmas splendor. Garlands and holly cover every surface, and magnificent Christmas trees go up in the great hall, and the smell of delicious food permeates the air. On Christmas morning, Ron throws a pillow at Harry to wake him up.
Oi, presents!
Harry gradually reaches for his glasses, and the presents at his foot of his bed come into focus. And he also sees that Ron is already tearing into his parcels.
Another sweater from Mum. Maroon again. See if you've got one.
Harry begins opening his own presents, indeed finding another sweater from Mrs. Weasley, scarlet with a golden Gryffindor lion on it. There are also some mince pies, peanut brittle, and other treats. But Harry finally lands on a long, thin package underneath everything else.
What's that?
I don't know.
Harry tears off the wrapping, and a gleaming, streamlined broomstick is revealed. Ron and Harry both gape in awe at the magnificent broomstick. It's a firebolt, the best broom currently on market. Harry lets the broom fall, and it stops at mounting height.
Who sent it to you?
Well, look and see if there's a card.
They both searched the wrappings and the floor nearby, but they couldn't find anything.
Blimey, who'd spend that much on you?
Well, I'm betting it wasn't the Dursleys.
Ron starts walking around the firebolt, examining it carefully.
I bet it was Dumbledore. Remember, he sent you the invisibility cloak anonymously.
But that was my dad's, though. Dumbledore just passed it on. He wouldn't spend hundreds of gallons on me. He can't just go giving students stuff like this.
That's why he wouldn't say it was him, in case some git like Malfoy. Malfoy! Wait till he sees you on this. He'll be sick as a pig. This is an international standard broom.
Ron flops back on his bed, laughing in glee at the thought of Malfoy's reaction.
I can't believe it. Who?
Ron sits back up and faces Harry.
I know. What about Lupin?
Harry starts to laugh at this statement.
You think it's Lupin? Listen, if he had this much gold, he'd be able to buy himself some new robes.
Yeah, but he likes you, and he was away when your Nimbus got smashed. He might have heard about it and visited Diagon Alley.
He was away? But he was ill when we played that match.
Well, he wasn't in the hospital wing.
Harry frowns at this new information.
I really can't see Lupin affording this.
Just then, Hermione enters the dormitory, carrying a very grumpy Crookshanks, who has a string of tinsel tied around his neck. Hermione drops him on Seamus's empty bed.
Don't bring him in here.
As Crookshanks starts to explore the room, Ron grabs Scabbers and shoves him in his pajama pocket. But just then, Hermione finally notices the firebolt.
Oh, Harry, who sent you there?
I don't know. There wasn't a card or anything.
But instead of being intrigued, Hermione seems worried, biting her lip in contemplation.
What's the matter with you?
I don't know, but it's a bit odd, isn't it? I mean, this is supposed to be quite a good broom, isn't it?
It's the best broom there is, Hermione.
Well, who'd send Harry something like that and not even tell him it was them?
Who cares? Listen, Harry, can I have a go on it? Can I?
I don't think anyone should ride that broom just yet.
What do you think Harry's gonna do with it? Sweep the floor?
Just then, Crookshanks springs from a nearby chair and onto Ron's chest.
Get him out of here!
Ron pulls Crookshanks off and aims a kick at him, but only hits the side of Harry's bed instead, causing him to drop the cat and hop around in pain. Hermione grabs her cat and quickly leaves the room, Crookshanks still eyeing Ron malevolently. But with the cat gone, Ron pulls Scabbers out of his pocket, comforting him. He looks terrible, extremely skinny and missing patches of fur.
He's not looking too good, is he?
It's stress. He'd be fine if that stupid verbal would leave him alone.
But Harry looks scabbards up and down, quite unsure of this. And over the rest of the Christmas holidays, the mood is stressed as Ron remains furious at Hermione for allowing Crookshanks free rein, and Hermione angry that Ron tried to kick him. Then finally, they all head to lunch, where instead of the usual house tables, there is only one small table with 12 places. Professors Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, Professor Sprout, and Flitwick wait for them and a few other students as they enter.
Merry Christmas! As there are so few of us, it seemed foolish to use the house tables. Sit down, sit down.
The students sit down near the end of the table, which is laden with delicious food, drinks, and baskets of Christmas crackers. Dumbledore picks one out, offering the other end to Snape, who pulls it. The bang sounds like a gunshot, and in the cracker's place is a pointed witch's hat with a stuffed vulture on top. Snape distastefully pushes it towards Dumbledore, who puts it on immediately. Everyone then begins making themselves plates, but are interrupted by the great hall doors opening once again, and Professor Trelawney enters, wearing a rather gaudy green sequined dress. Dumbledore gets up to greet her.
Sybil, this is a pleasant surprise.
I have been crystal gazing, headmaster. To my astonishment, I saw myself abandoning my solitary luncheon, coming to join you. Who am I to refuse the prompting of fate? Am I one hasting for my towel? I beg you to forgive my lateness.
Certainly, certainly. Let me draw you up a chair.
Pulling out his wand, he draws a chair between Professor Snape and McGonagall. Trelawney doesn't sit down, however, as she eyes the occupants of the table.
I dare not, headmaster. If I join, we shall be 13. Never forget that. When 13 dine together, the first to rise shall be the first to die.
We'll risk it, Sybil. Do sit down. The turkey's getting stone cold.
Trelawney nervously takes her seat, and everyone begins to feast. Nearly 2 hours later, once the plates are empty and the last cracker's been pulled, Ron and Harry get up to head back to their common room. Trelawney's eyes widen, and she lets out a loud shriek.
My dears, which of you let me sit first? Which?
Harry and Ron exchange uncertain looks and shrug.
I doubt it will make much difference, unless a muttering Atman is waiting outside to slaughter the first into the entrance hall.
Trelawney looks scandalized, but the boys relax at this. Harry then looks over at Hermione, who hasn't gotten up yet.
You coming?
No, I want a word with Professor McGonagall.
The boys head up to the common room, where they resume their admiration of the firebolt. They continue until Hermione enters a while later, and to the boys' surprise, she's accompanied by Professor McGonagall. Hermione quickly takes a seat and pulls out a book, determinedly ignoring their curious glances. McGonagall then eyes the firebolt beadily.
So that's it, is it? Miss Granger has informed me. You've been sent a broom. Potter, may I?
Though she doesn't wait for a response, pulling the firebolt from Harry's hands and examining it critically.
And there was no note at all. Potter, no card, no message of any kind.
No.
I see. Well, I'm afraid I will have to take this, Potter.
Harry quickly gets to his feet, alarmed.
What? Why?
It will have to be checked for jinxes. Of course, I am no expert, but I dare say Madam Hooch and Professor Flitwick will strip it down.
Strip it down?
It shouldn't take more than a few weeks. You will have it back when we are sure that it is safe.
McGonagall turns heel and exits through the portrait hole, leaving Harry standing, very confused and very upset. Ron, however, rounds furiously on Hermione.
What did you go running to McGonagall for?
Hermione tosses her book aside and stands to face Ron defiantly.
Because I thought, and McGonagall agrees with me, that broom was probably sent to Harry by Sirius Black.
The rest of the holidays pass tensely, the boys barely speaking to Hermione, who takes to hiding out in the library instead. And everyone is glad when term resumes and the castle's noisy again. And on the night that all the students return from their holidays, Harry and Ron are cornered by Oliver Wood.
Had a good Christmas. I've been doing some thinking over Christmas, Harry. After the last match, if the Dementors come to the next one,
I'm working on it. Professor Lupin said he'd train me to defend against the Dementors, but he's been ill. He said he should be fine after Christmas.
Oliver lets out a sigh of relief.
Well, in that case, I really didn't want to lose you as Seeker, Harry. So, have you ordered a new broom yet?
No.
Blimey, Harry. You'd better get a move on. You can't ride that shooting star against Ravenclaw.
He got a firebolt for Christmas.
Oliver's mouth drops in surprise.
No, a real firebolt. Seriously.
Don't get excited, Oliver. I haven't got it anymore. McGonagall confiscated it. She wants it checked for jinxes.
Jinxed? How could it be jinxed?
Sirius Black. He's supposed to be after me. McGonagall reckons he sent it.
But he couldn't have done. He's on the run. Everyone's looking for him. He can't just waltz into quality Quidditch supplies.
I know, but McGonagall still wants to strip it down.
Oliver turns pale at this.
I'll go and talk to her, Harry. I'll make her see reason. A firebolt. She wants us to win as much as we do. A firebolt.
After the fence class on the first day, Harry lingers to speak to Lupin. And once everyone has left, he approaches the teacher's desk.
Professor, I was wondering... you promised.
Ah, yes, let me see. How about on Thursday? History and Magic classroom. Should be large enough. I'll have to think carefully now to do this, though. We can't bring a real Dementor now, can we?
Thank you, sir.
Harry leaves the classroom with a spring in his step. And 8 o'clock on Thursday can't come fast enough for him. Thursday comes and Harry enters the darkened room and lights the lamps before sitting at a desk to wait. Lupin arrives a few minutes later, lugging a large trunk behind him.
It's a Boggart. Found this one lurking in Mr. Filch's filing cabinet. It's the nearest we'll get to a true Dementor. The Boggart will turn into the Dementor once it sees you, so we'll need to practice this way.
Harry nods, attempting to disguise his apprehension as he and Lupin both take out their wands.
I am going to attempt to teach you the Patronus charm. This will be beyond ordinary wizarding level.
And how does it work?
When it works properly, it conjures a Patronus, a sort of anti-Dementor, a guardian that acts as a shield between you and the Dementor. It's a sort of positive force, a projection of the very things the Dementor feeds upon. Hope, happiness, despair. But it cannot feel despair. I must warn you, though, that this may be too advanced. Many qualified wizards struggle with this.
What does a Patronus look like?
Each is unique to the witch or wizard. It will only work if you're concentrating with all your might on a single, very happy memory.
Harry considers this for a moment, before seeming to settle on something. Then finally, he nods in readiness.
The incantation is Expecto Patronum.
Expecto Patronum. Expecto Patronum.
To his surprise, something silvery shoots out from his wand. vapor-like and very temporary, but there.
Did you see that?
Very good, Harry. Right, are you ready to try it out on a Dementor?
Harry nods, gripping his wand tightly. Lupin heads to the chest as Harry moves in front of it. The chest then opens, and a Dementor emerges.
Expecto Patronum.
But nothing happens. Everything goes distant as the effects of the fake Dementor washes over him. And once again, he hears his mother pleading.
Not Harry, please. I'll do anything.
Stand aside, girl.
Harry, are you there?
Harry comes to, lying on his back on the floor. Lupin helps him over to a desk chair before pulling a chocolate frog from his pocket. Harry eats it absent-mindedly.
Harry, if you don't want to continue...
No, I have to. The Dementors might show up again, and then what?
Lupin eyes him uncertainly before agreeing.
Okay, your memory may not have been strong enough, so try using another.
Harry stands, trying to think of another memory. Lupin heads back to the chest, and Harry nods at him. The chest opens, and the Dementor reappears.
Expecto Patronum. Expecto.
Harry's initial resolve loses steam, and things once again go distant. The voices start again, but this time it's a new memory.
Lily, take Harry and go. It's him. Go, run. I'll hold him off.
The sounds of someone stumbling out of the room and high-pitched laughter. Lupin shakes Harry to wake him. Tears stream down Harry's face as he slowly regains consciousness.
My dad. It's the first time I've ever heard it.
This strikes Lupin surprisingly hard.
You heard James?
Harry nods, almost unable to believe it.
Listen, Harry, perhaps we should leave it here tonight. This is ridiculously advanced. I shouldn't have suggested it.
Harry stands up, ready to continue, or at least pretending to.
No, one more go. I'm not thinking of happy enough things, that's all.
Closing his eyes for a moment, he finally lands on a happy memory. Lupin then reluctantly crosses over to the chest, letting out the Dementor one more time. The room begins to fade for Harry once again, but he musters enough strength to surge forward.
Expecto Patronum! Expecto Patronum!
The voices and screaming start again, but this time, distantly. Harry still remains present in the room, still able to see the real world. A huge, silvery, shadowy thing emerges from Harry's wand, standing between him and the Dementor. Lupin then takes this opportunity to act.
Ridiculous!
The Dementor vanishes as Lupin forces it back into the chest. Harry sinks into a nearby chair, panting heavily, his legs shaking. Lupin eventually heads back to Harry, offering him a large bar of chocolate.
Eat the lot, Madame Pomfrey will be after my blood. You've done excellently for today, Harry. I'm impressed. We will continue next week.
Alright.
Lupin starts extinguishing the lights in the room as Harry leaves, taking large bites from his chocolate bar. And while waiting for the upcoming match, Harry takes to badgering McGonagall about the firebolt. And even she begins to get annoyed with him. Though he continues training for the match on school brooms. But as Homer builds up, Harry begins to show strain. Although Hermione is in an even more severe spot. She starts snapping at people at every interruption. Harry's Patronus lessons also continue, and he now consistently can produce the silvery shield. And after their fourth lesson, Harry sinks into a chair. Lupin gives him an encouraging clap on the shoulder.
You're expecting too much of yourself. For your age, even this indistinct Patronus is an immense accomplishment. You'll be able to protect yourself long enough to land.
He heads over to his briefcase and pulls 2 bottles of butterbeer out, handing one to Harry.
Have a drink. You won't have tried it before.
Oh, butterbeer. Yeah, I like that stuff. Ron brought me some last Hogsmeade trip.
I see. Well, here's to a Gryffindor victory.
They toast and drink in silence, but eventually, Harry decides to bring something up.
What's under a Dementor's hood?
Well, people who know are in no position to tell us. The Dementor only lowers its hood to use its last and worst weapon.
And what's that?
Lupin smiles a sort of twisted smile as he explains.
They call it the Dementor's kiss. I suppose there must be some sort of mouth under there, because they clamp their jaws upon the mouth of the victim and suck out the soul.
What? They kill?
No, it's worse. You can exist without your soul, you know, as long as your brain and heart are still working. We will have no sense of self anymore, no memories, nothing. No chance of recovery either. We'll just exist as an empty shell. It's the fate that waits Sirius Black. It was in the Prophet this morning. The Ministry has given the permission to perform it should they find him.
Harry considers this for a moment. The idea of someone having their soul taken. But the thought of Sirius Black brings a scowl to his face.
He deserves it.
Oh, you think so, do you? Do you really think anyone deserves that?
Yes, for some things.
Harry considers telling Lupin what he knows, but decides that him sneaking into Hogsmeade would get him into trouble. He then quickly stands and starts to leave.
Thank you for the butterbeer, sir.
He strides out of the room, thoughts of the Dementor's kiss whirling in his head. He is so lost in dark thoughts that he runs straight into Professor McGonagall, and the both stumble before regaining their footing.
Do watch where you're going, Potter.
Sorry, Professor.
I've just been looking for you in the Gryffindor common room.
Harry notices that she's holding the firebolt, and his jaw drops. It looks just as magnificent and perfect as ever.
We've done everything we could think of. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it. You get a very good friend somewhere.
I can have it back? Seriously?
Seriously, and I dare say, you'll need to get the feel of it before Saturday. And Potter, do try to win, won't you? Or we'll be out of the running for the 8th year in a row, as Professor Snape has reminded me last night.
Harry speechlessly accepts the firebolt before running up the stairs to Gryffindor Tower. He runs into Ron just outside the common room portrait.
She gave it to you? Excellent. Listen, can I still have a go on it?
Definitely. Look, we should make up with Hermione. She was only worried, you know.
Alright, she's in the common room, working for a change.
They head back to the entrance, where Neville is pleading with Sir Cadogan.
I wrote them down. I must have dropped them.
A likely tale. Good even, my fine young yeoman. Come clap this loon in irons. He's trying to force entry to the chambers within.
Oh, shut up.
I lost the passwords. I made him tell him what the passwords are going to be this week, because he keeps changing them, but I can't find them.
Odds Bodikins.
Sir Cadogan eyes Harry and Ron annoyedly, but the portrait hole opens anyway. The 3 of them head in, and are quickly swarmed by excited students, very eager to check out the amazing broom. Finally, Harry was able to tear himself away, finding Hermione sitting in a corner, determinedly ignoring the events around her as she works.
I've got it back.
Well, at least now you know it's safe.
You're right. I should probably take it upstairs.
I'll take it. I need to give Scabbers his tonic anyway.
Ron quickly snatches it and carefully takes it upstairs, handling it like it was made of glass. Harry sits down on the one empty chair nearby Hermione and eyes all her books and papers.
How are you getting through this? Why don't you drop a couple subjects? You look exhausted.
It's true. She looks a mess, her eyes slightly frantic as she searches for papers, her robes wrinkled and hair even bushier than normal.
I couldn't do that.
Harry picks up a rather confusing book with strange symbols all over it.
Arithmancy looks terrible.
Oh, no, it's wonderful, it's...
But they're interrupted by Ron as he runs down the stairs, carrying a bedsheet. Beelining for Harry and Hermione, he waves the bedsheet in front of them.
Look, Scabbers.
What?
Blood. He's gone. And I also found this.
He holds something else up for them to see. And in the light of the fire, they see several long ginger cat hairs. The conclusion is obvious enough, and any hope of reconciliation seems gone. This is compounded over the next few weeks, as Ron and Hermione continue to argue over what happened. Harry does attempt to mediate, but it's no use, and he returns to just focusing on training with the firebolt. Finally, the match against Ravenclaw arrives. Breakfast is full of chatter about the outcome, and the firebolt receives its fair amount of attention. Then at last, the players head to the changing rooms. Harry pockets his wand as the others line up to head onto the pitch, desperately hoping that there won't be a need for it. The two teams head out, lining up before Madame Hooch. Wood and the Ravenclaw captain, Roger Davies, shake hands, and then Madame Hooch gives the signal for play to begin, releasing the snitch and the bludgers. Harry zooms up to a great height, and the Ravenclaw seeker, Cho Chang, tails after him. After a few minutes of them watching the surroundings and each other, Harry spots a glinting near the ground and takes off, Cho hot on his heels. Harry swerves to avoid a bludger, losing the snitch, but luckily, he spotted about a minute later, near the Ravenclaw hoops. Both seekers pelt after it, but Cho has no chance on her school broom. Harry's just about to catch it, when Cho cries out in alarm, distracting Harry. He looks down, spotting 3 Dementors, tall, dark, and foreboding. Not stopping to think, Harry pulls out his wand and aims.
Expecto Patronum!
A great silvery white figure erupts from his wand, but Harry doesn't stay to watch as he quickly descends, his mind still clear and still aware of his surroundings. He snatches the snitch just moments before he reaches the ground, and the stands erupt in a great tumult. Harry is surrounded by his team, who clap him on the back and congratulate him. Ron leads the crowd of students who subsequently swarm him. Harry then spots Lupin among the crowds and heads over. He has a strange expression, a mixture of surprise and pride.
That was some Patronus.
The Dementors didn't affect me at all. I didn't feel a thing.
That would be because they weren't Dementors. Come and see. Come on now.
Harry and Ron follow Lupin across the field, where a smaller crowd of people are gathered.
You gave Mr. Malfoy quite the fright, you know.
Lying on the ground are Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, and Marcus Flint, the Slytherin captain. They all struggle to get out of long black robes. McGonagall stands over them, more furious than they've ever seen her.
An unworthy trick, a low and cowardly attempt to sabotage the Gryffindor Seeker. Detention for all of you, and 50 points from Slytherin. I shall speak to Professor Dumbledore about this. Make no mistake.
Harry and Ron burst out laughing. The sight of Malfoy and his friends in such a humiliating position is too much for them to bear.
Come on, Harry. Party in the common room now.
Energy running high, Harry joins the team as they and the rest of Gryffindor's supporters troop back to the castle and into the common room. Fred and George disappear for a while, returning with armfuls of snacks, candy, and drinks.
How did you do that?
With a little help from Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs.
Harry drifts over to where Hermione sits in an armchair, nose deep in a thick book, a piece of parchment on her lap to take notes.
Did you even go to the match?
Of course I did. And I'm very glad we won, and I think you did really well. But I need to read this by Monday.
Come on, Hermione. Have some food.
He looks over to Ron, seeming to wonder whether he'd be willing to let things go between them.
I can't, Harry. I've still got 422 pages to read. Besides, he doesn't want me to join in.
She also looks towards Ron, who's busy talking with Fred and George.
If Scabbers hadn't just been eaten, he could have had some of those fudflies. He really liked them.
This causes Hermione to burst into tears, and she quickly grabs her book and runs up the stairs. Harry stares in surprise before he crosses over to Ron.
Can't you give her a break?
No, if she just acted like she was sorry, but she'll never admit she's wrong, Hermione. She's acting like Scabbers has gone on vacation or something.
Harry sighs, but lets it go anyway. The party goes on for several more hours, though, before all of a sudden, McGonagall enters the common room, looking around in surprise at the raucous events that quickly die down once everyone notices her.
I say it's nearly 1 in the morning, and you will all have class tomorrow. As happy as I am that we won today, it's time for bed. Now!
Everyone reluctantly disperses to their dormitories, still excitedly discussing the match for a while. But eventually, Harry and Ron settle down into their beds, and surprisingly quickly, fall asleep. But then, all of a sudden, Harry wakes to a terrified scream. Completely disoriented, Harry reaches for his glasses, hearing the other boys also trying to figure out what's happening.
What's going on?
Black. Sirius Black. With a knife.
What?
Just now. There.
Are you sure you weren't dreaming, Ron?
Look at the curtains. He was here.
Indeed enough, the curtains stand as evidence of Ron's story. They all then head out of the common room to investigate, drawing the attention of other sleeping students.
Are we starting up again? Excellent.
Down in the common room, some of the girls also came to see what was going on. Percy then comes down from the boys' side.
Everybody back upstairs.
Percy, Sirius Black in our dormitory. He threatened me with a knife.
Nonsense, Ron. You had too much to eat. Had a nightmare.
I tell you.
But the uproar has drawn Professor McGonagall again. who enters with a furious expression.
I am delighted that Gryffindor won the match, but this is getting ridiculous. Percy, I expect better from...
I certainly didn't authorize this, Professor. I asked you to tell me all to go back to bed. Ron here just had a nightmare.
I did not. Professor, I woke up and Black was standing over me, holding a knife.
Don't be ridiculous, Weasley. How could he have possibly got through the portrait hole?
Ron points to Sir Cadogan's picture.
Ask him.
Suspicious, but deciding to humor Ron, McGonagall heads over to the portrait. The whole waiting crowd listens anxiously.
Sir Cadogan, did you just let a man into Gryffindor Tower?
Ah, certainly, good lady.
You did, but the passwords...
Had 'em all. Had a whole week's work, my lady. Read 'em off a little piece of paper.
Which absolutely foolish person, wrote down this week's passwords and left them lying around?
No one speaks. You could hear a pin drop with how quiet it was. But the silence was finally broken by a nearly inaudible, terrified squeak, and Neville, trembling from head to toe, raises his hand.
Thank you everyone for tuning in to part 4 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We hope you all enjoyed it. And stay tuned for the next episode for part 5. And I will see you all